into the Paul Kuharsky podcast. I'm live at Edley's in 5 Points in East Nashville, 1004 Woodland Street. Great food, great service, great place to eat barbecue. You should head over here or to one of the other 7 locations around Nashville. Brought to you by Zen Sports, part of the 440 Sports Network in Nashville. We're going to talk a lot of Titans stuff this afternoon. Brian Callahan's potential, if in fact this starts out to be a big-time losing season. What does history tell us about coaches who start with 4 wins or less in the NFL? Some money matters regarding some potential further trades with guys with big contracts, stacked boxes, and what the Titans are seeing against their run game, how it's affecting the rest of what they do, how they have failed to fight back from adversity so far this season, your questions, and, of course, a lot more. Edley's. I'm here at 5 Points. You can go to Sylvan Park, Donaldson, Franklin / Berry Farms, Gallatin, 12 South, Nolensville, the factory at Franklin. All fantastic spots. I've eaten at all or most of them. Pick the one near your house. Make a plan to go there tonight, tomorrow, this weekend. Catch a game. Grab some great food. I recommend the Burnt Ends. Zen Sports, the place to bet on the game coming up this weekend. I'll offer you my best bet of the weekend coming up. I want to start here on some Lions-specific things. The Titans just lost to Buffalo badly. A lot of people are saying they'll lose to Detroit, but not as badly because Detroit will, for some reason, call off the Dogs. I don't know if they will or they won't. It's another bad matchup for the Titans, clearly going on the road before they get what should be a bit of a reprieve at home against New England. The Patriots, another bad team. The Patriots looking at a trip to Nashville as a reprieve, but, 2 bad teams squaring off. Titans will have a chance to win that one. It would be a monumental upset, obviously, if they went to Detroit and beat the Lions. But a couple of guys talking about the Lions this week, one from each side of the ball. Let's start off with Tony Pollard, just talking about what the Lions defense will bring. Pollard has not been in the locker room a lot, has not talked a lot, so it's worthwhile hearing from probably the Titans' best offensive player so far this season when he made an appearance at his locker this week.
That's a big piece of their defense that they're missing, but they're still going to be a fly-around defense, a physical unit. They love to play bully ball. That's what they're all about. So we know it's going to be a physical game. We're ready for it.
He's talking about Hutchinson missing, obviously, but they're going to play bully ball and be a physical team. Does the Titans' offensive line stand up to that? That's a big question. We'll get into this adversity theme a little bit more. More interesting, perhaps, Jeffrey Simmons talking about the Lions' offensive line, which is probably the best unit the team has faced so far this season. Here's Jeff.
Yeah, they work good together. They're a veteran offensive line. I would say, especially interior and the offensive tackles, they're pretty good. And, they run the ball pretty dang good. They got 2 explosive running backs. But, man, we don't fear no one. At the end of the day, our job as a defense to go out there and play all style. When we came in this morning, we normally get keys from Denard. But at the end of the day, we have to play all style of football. If we play all style of football, aggressive, disciplined football, good eyes, we'll come out this game the way we want to come out of it. So, like I said, they are veteran offensive line. They're pretty good. They work good together. But at the end of the day, it's about us. That's what we have to get back to, especially here in Tennessee. Stop focusing on everything on the outside and get back to focus on everything about the Tennessee Titans.
I don't know. I mean, look, Jeff Simmons has to say stuff like that, right? But if they play their style of football and Detroit plays their style of football, does the Titans front win against Detroit's front? No, I don't think so. The Titans front does not have the caliber of personnel that the Lions offensive line has. And, Denard Wilson today, I asked about Simmons or he was asked about Simmons. And then I said, why does it seem like everyone's afraid to say that Jeff has played better ball in the past than he's playing now? He said that Jeff is playing sound football and he's stoning the run and that he garners all the attention up front. Well, this is the same thing that we've heard before. Terrell Williams, who's a very good defensive line coach, but he used to basically say, if Jeff's doubled, it's all over. Somebody else has to do the job. Well, the best defensive tackles in the league, I don't want to harp on Jeff and I don't want to pick on Jeff, best defensive tackles in the league still wreak havoc against double teams. And I think it's a psychological thing that they won't say. Jeff Simmons is playing fine, but we expect more from him. Jeff Simmons is playing fine, but for where he ranks on our salary list, we need more. We need more explosive plays. We need Jeff to wreak more havoc. We need Jeff to force turnovers. We need Jeff to sack the quarterback. We need Jeff to rattle people. And that is what they need from Jeff Simmons. And they're not getting that from Jeff Simmons. And I can see it, and you can see it, and we can say it, but the Titans can't say it out loud. Why can't they say it out loud? I think because Jeff doesn't react to people saying it out loud. Jeff doesn't care for me because I say it out loud. If his coordinator or his position coach or his coach said it out loud, I think it would sour him and it would not help him do better. And I think they're conscious of that the way the previous regime was conscious of that. And I think that says a lot about how Jeff operates. I think it's a disappointment. We've got some questions here about Jeff. EVC says, why do people give more credit to Big Jeff than he deserves? Well, I mean, some low intellect fans say, oh, he's Big Jeff. Big Jeff. The incredible nickname, Big Jeff. He's a big man, and they call him Big. It's incredible. Look, Jeff Simmons is a big, strong guy. His game is relentless effort and really good strength. He can throw people around. And he's a good football player, but he's not lived up to the contract. And Denard Wilson mentioned again today that he's hurt. Well, he's been hurt now 3 years running where they haven't gotten full Jeff Simmons effect out of him. I think it's interesting, too, the bearing it has on Tavondre Sweat, which we will get to. We got robbed, TK says, out of a Dan Campbell versus Mike Vrabel matchup, which would have been interesting. RD asks if you traded Simmons, what could the return be? I'm really bad at estimating the return on trades. I would think that you could get a second for Jeffrey Simmons. I'm going to talk a little bit later about the financial elements of such a trade for he or for Landry. Now, the one thing is, we talk about these trades now. The Titans traded DeAndre Hopkins, and you could say what you will about the return. I think the return is fitting. A fifth, that could be a fourth. You compare it to the Devontae Adams trade and the Amari Cooper trade, and it slots reasonably there. They got a good return on Ernest Jones trade. And getting Baker back, a guy that they liked in the offseason. He's not as good as Ernest Jones, but you're getting a fourth-round pick back with him. I think the thing with those two trades is you have guys, you're getting Jerome Baker back for Ernest Jones. Well, there's a replacement for Ernest Jones, a functional replacement who might be, he's not as good as Ernest Jones, but they like him in free agency and think he can be a good player. And behind DeAndre Hopkins, I'm not saying that NWI by any means is DeAndre Hopkins, but DeAndre Hopkins has not produced this year. Part of it, maybe him slowing down. Part of it, definitely the quarterback play. Part of it, I think the play calling. But wrap all of that up. NWI's had 4 targets. He's got 2 touchdowns on 4 targets. He's clearly got more to offer this offense. In both of these instances, the guy who's departed has somebody behind him who can effectively offer at least a good share of what the guy he's replacing is offering. If you trade Harold Landry, there's nobody on this roster that can give you a share of what Harold Landry offers, even though Harold Landry's not playing his best. Same thing with Jeffrey Simmons. You would be playing a scrub level player and just taking your lumps if Jeffrey Simmons isn't on this team, if Harold Landry's not on this team. If you traded both of them, your defensive front would be, I think, easily the worst in the league. I mean, it's not very bad. It's not very good now. So, that's a difficult thing to survive at this stage. I wanted to point out that JT Runke, who is producing as he has been for the last several weeks, and for whose work I'm grateful. I've mocked his shirts in the past. Today, he dares to wear a Subway Series shirt. He's a Mets fan. I don't know if he was born when the Yankees and the Mets played in the World Series. What year was the Yankees-Mets Subway Series? 2000. I don't know if he was born in 2000. I don't know if he's 24 years old. But the Mets are eliminated, obviously. It's not a time to be wearing Mets gear. And then you're celebrating a World Series that you lost with the Subway Series shirt. It's a very odd selection to me. Why would you buy a Subway Series shirt like the only practical, so he wouldn't have bought it during the Subway Series because it was 2000. He might have been 2 years old if he was alive. And then you're wearing the Subway Series shirt. As a Mets fan, you would only wear it during the Subway Series. Then when you're done losing the Subway Series, you would stop celebrating the fact that you were in a Subway Series, which you lost. You should never buy gear like for a AFC championship or a AFC South championship or a NL East championship or a NLCS championship. You wait, you see what your team does, and then you buy a World Series championship or a Super Bowl championship thing. I guess maybe you could buy a conference title shirt. But JT, I know you're not going to come on the air. You can feel free to get in the comments there. Another foolish shirt choice. Kenston Farmer wants me to talk about my media brethren, where I always get myself in trouble. How do I feel about my fellow media members? He tends to think they're soft and sensitive, asking too many Pop-Tart questions while trying to cape for the players, shaking my head, pathetic. There are a few who do not do that. There are many who do that. You have to divide us into baskets. There are people that work for Titans Radio Network, which used to push back against Titans when I worked there. They don't push back against Titans very much anymore. Some of them might as well carry pom-poms. There are TV people, some who are merely getting sound bites, and it doesn't really matter what the sound is. But certainly it's generally a soft press corps, though there are a few more hard people than you think digging at stuff. I'm doing that. Teron Davenport's doing that. John Glennon is doing that. I'm trying to go through the room. I think now, from a different perspective, Easton and JT are doing that, maybe with numbers from the analytics point of view. And I think they've brought a healthy kind of new age, modern perspective to it. JT says he was born in 2000. I don't know if that was before, after, or during the Subway Series. He's forever proud of his miserable Mets, and thus he wears a shirt representing them losing. And it's vintage. Very interesting. Loki wants to know, what do I think about Jake Browning as a trade option? He thrived under Callahan's offense last year when he played. Why would the Bengals trade Jake Browning? Then I just don't understand the thinking that they would willingly part with Jake Browning. Like, you'd have to bowl them over to get Jake Browning, because if and I don't think they'd give him up really for anything, because what if Burrow goes down? Then what are they going to do? They're going to say, "Oh, we got a nice draft pick from the Titans." No, they can win with Jake Burrow. They can win with Jake Browning. They showed it last year. So it doesn't make much sense at all for them to trade. Let's get to Peter Skoronski here, who said something really just dead on. And I appreciate this locker room, because it's got guys who will speak to the heart of the matter and are not hiding from things. And Peter Skoronski identifying the root of the Titans' problem. And this started at the beginning of the week with Nick Vanette, who I said I thought was kind of ridiculous on offensive leadership and his declining to identify offensive leaders. And I wrote a piece about offensive leadership at paulkuharsky.com, which you should read. And you need to become a member of paulkuharsky.com to read everything that I write, to read Mike Herndon, to read Blake Bedingfield, to get access to all of our news and analysis. By the way, the news last week that Mason Rudolph was going to start and Will Levis was going to sit came from me, the most tied-in reporter there is on the beat. But this inability to overcome adversity, Nick Vanette first touched on it, that the sideline sags at certain times, and it's hard to re-energize it. And I think that's tied into a lack of leadership. So let's listen to Peter Skoronski here talk about that issue.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly haven't shown that so far. I think the whole team and offense especially is when adversity has hit. I think we've just kind of been like, oh well, here we go, and that's why we've been losing. Really, is because we haven't really been able to bounce back from adversity. And I saw that in camp. I think we did a good job of that in camp when we would have some struggles or maybe a bad drive or bad play. I thought we'd bounce back a lot, and we got to get that back because that's really why we're losing games. You know, we've been leading in every game and kind of just giving it away at whatever that inflection point was and not been able to bounce back.
Oh, well, here we go. They hit the inflection point and they can't bounce back. I mean, there's no hiding from the truth there from Skoronski or from the team, generally speaking. And he's not being defensive about it. He's being candid about it. But, I mean, how do you solve that problem? You have to get over that hump one time. And then you show that you can get over that hump, that you know how to get over that hump. You prove it to yourself. And they haven't proven it to themselves. Certainly not against a good team. And so I think it's a huge disappointment that they haven't been able to do it. And it's a collective thing. Look, the players' performance hasn't been up to the task. The coaching, I don't think, has been up to the task. And the roster that was put together, the talent, is not sufficient to the task. You know, there's a lot or increasing talk of if people will be fired and who would be fired. I mean, this roster, it's more talented than the roster of the last 2 years for sure. But these guys, the talent that was brought in, are not performing. Lloyd Cushenberry, you know, I think is steadily improving, but it's taking time with Bill Callahan, more time than it should. And Calvin Ridley's been a dud. And L'Jarius Sneed's been a dud. Chidobe Awuzie we haven't seen, right? Pollard's been pretty good, but they haven't put themselves in a position where he can run for the entirety of a game, and they cut into him with Tyjae Spears, I think sometimes unnecessarily, though he's hurt now. This free agency class, which I think totaled $290 million worth of money. For $290 million, they're 1-5. They could have been 1-5 with last year's roster and not spent that money. So I think that's got to be a huge disappointment. Justin Fields is going to be out on the market, TK says. Other names, Mac Jones, if you're looking for that rehabilitation project kind of guy. Two other guys I've mentioned that are in that category. I'm not saying they're going to be good. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance. I'm not sure about Lance's contract situation. But, you know, if you're looking for the next Geno Smith, the next Baker Mayfield, the next Sam Darnold, it could come from a bucket of guys that looks like that. And next year's situation could be a quarterback like that with Levis, while the Titans use a high draft pick and high draft picks throughout the draft each round to bolster this roster. They haven't spent a high pick, a first-round pick. They've spent, 2 on edge rushers in their history in Tennessee? Javon Curse and Derek Morgan. I mean, that's ridiculous. Now, they had a coach in Jim Washburn for a long time who could develop guys. They don't have that coach now. They need a highly talented edge rusher. They need 2, but they need 1 for sure. They need a right tackle. I can't see you spending one of your first 2 picks on another damn tackle. They need a young, dynamic, dependable wide receiver. They've been coming out of the draft in droves, and the Titans have drafted who? Des Fitzpatrick and Jaquan Jackson. Not enough. Not enough at all. So gotta do better. Robert says you don't trade Landry for less than a second, do you? Could you almost get a first for him? I don't know about a first. I would think you could get a second for a team that's desperate for edge help. He's better as a second guy than a first guy. Other than this year's draft class, is there anyone else you see that we wouldn't trade? Yeah, I tweeted out a list yesterday of who I wouldn't trade. I mean, this year's 3 picks, obviously Latham and Sweat and Brownlee. Skoronsky, I think, is growing. Spears, I think, is a valuable piece to have. Roger McCreary, I wouldn't touch. Stonehouse, I think, is pretty damn good. And I don't think anybody's coming knocking on your door for your punter or your kicker. A lot of people want to trade Folk. Folk, you're not getting anything for Folk. I mean, the Titans got Folk for a 7th rounder. So I don't think. Do I think the D-Hop trade means the team has given up on the Levis experiment? I don't. I explained earlier that I think NWI is a capable receiver who could match the poor production they were getting out of Hopkins, which was a combination of Hopkins and play calling and Levis's poor play. So I love Hopkins. I'm really going to miss Hopkins in the locker room. I had a really good relationship with DeAndre Hopkins, one of my favorites of the recent locker rooms. But I don't think it's a huge blow to the offense that he's not here. Now, maybe if you're envisioning the offense taking off, he would have been a part of that. But I think, for all the shit that I've given NWI over the years for his ceiling, right now, you take his 4 targets, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns. I'll take him right now. Would I want to take a quarterback super high this draft or go to a Darnold, Bryce Young, Zach Wilson type project as a bridge guy for a year or so? That's from TK. I'm not a draftnik. Braden Gall says that the quarterbacks in this draft are better than most people think. The general consensus is this isn't the right year to need a quarterback. Titans have drafted quarterbacks in years. It's not the right year to need a quarterback a lot. That wasn't the perception of the Vince Young draft with Cutler and Young and Leinart. Certainly was the perception the year of Locker. And look, the next year we know Arch Manning's there. God, if the Titans could get Arch Manning, that would really be something. But you can't guarantee how you're going to line up a year from now. Stockpile all the draft picks you can. Give yourself as much mobility as you can. If somebody wants to come up, if you have the number 1 pick in this draft somehow, and right now by record, even though they're 1-5 and other teams are 1-6, if you look at strength of schedule, they still would be 4th. And yet it's too early to look at that strength of schedule because the Titans will go down as they played Jacksonville a couple times. I'm not interested in Shedeur Sanders. I don't think he's going to be a great pro from what I know of him, and I don't think the Titans need that kind of circus. They need electricity. They need an electric player, but I don't think they need a Deion Sanders-related circus. Whether they still need time or not to know if Levis is the guy, one thing we know is he's a guy who can't stay healthy. I think it's too early to say that. Got dinged last year. He's got dinged this year. A lot of quarterbacks of that kind of level aren't playing 17-game seasons anymore. And I don't think that's I think it's unreasonable to call him injury prone at this stage. I am at Edley's, the best barbecue in and around Nashville. 5 Points in East Nashville, 1004 Woodland Street in 5 Points. It's a great location. It's a great spot. On the other side here, you've got a patio over here, open air. We've got Leon over here who's begging for attention. I was going to get to Leon, but he's waving his arms. He mixes up a mean margarita. He's really good at paying attention to multiple people at the same time. He might be coming around here to say his hello. Here's Leon, everybody. Leon
Come on,
is the
guys.
man.
How y'all doing?
What do you want to tell the people, Leon?
Come get you some fried ribs. Come on.
Fried ribs. He's
They'll
pushing
change your
on
life.
me. I'm unable to eat
out.
during the show, but he says they'll change your life. He was encouraging me to eat the ribs during the show, so you're welcome that I am not eating fried ribs during the show, but they sound fantastic. The setup here is amazing. The setup at all of the Edleys are amazing. Put it on your agenda. You need to eat the great barbecue of Edley's, and I'm thankful to Will Newman and all the people connected to Edley's for sponsoring the Thursday podcast in conjunction with Zen Sports and the Sunday podcast, which is a huge hit. People really like talking after the game. Everybody retweet what you're in right now, and we'll get a bigger crowd going. We're also on YouTube. Subscribe, rate, review. Will be out on Apple, Spotify, and iHeart shortly. Let's talk about loaded boxes. So Brian Callahan was talking early in the week about how the way people were defending the Titans' run game has a bearing on what the Titans are doing offensively. And it's slowing them down or causing putting some bumps in the road for the Titans in terms of what they're able to do passing. And that conflicted a little bit, at least in my eyes and in the eyes of some of you who read me, with something that I sent out earlier this week. I'm trying to find it right now. I thought I had it in my notes. With something that Next Gen Stats sent out about loaded boxes. Because Next Gen doesn't see the Titans as going against a lot of loaded boxes. Give me a second. I'm going to find it here. Blah, 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 blah. Sorry. Darn it. It basically said that only one running back in week 7 that we just saw did not face a single stacked box this week with a minimum of 10 carries. Tony Pollard, 61 yards on 16 carries, and he wound up with -4 rushing yards over expected. So I asked Nick Holtz this morning, and he said he was familiar with Next Gen rushing, Next Gen Stats, but how to make this jive that Brian was saying, stacked boxes were causing them issues in terms of what they were trying to do. But Next Gen was saying that Pollard didn't see a stacked box at all. And here's what Nick Holtz had to say about squaring those two things.
I would say there's the one coming out second drive of the third quarter. It was 1st and 10, and we ended up handing it to Tony on the left side, and they brought that will free safety blitz into that. That's a pretty stacked box. So there was certainly 8 guys on that one where we ended up losing 3 and got behind the chains. So yeah, I know Next Gen Stats, sometimes they have different maybe models, but there was certainly a lot of people run line of scrimmage.
So what's happening here is Next Gen Stats using the chips that guys have in the back of their uniform. There's a little pocket that holds their GPS monitor, and they're calculating where people are, and so they're calculating that probably right before the snap. So right before the snap, the box might not be stacked. But on a play like that Holtz is talking about, there's a run blitz coming, so that guy's probably not taking off to create what the Titans regard as a stacked box, and technically is a stacked box, until after the snap. And so Next Gen records at the snap, and the Titans see something different after the snap. It qualifies as a stacked box then, and does have a bearing on what they're doing. So that's why those two things don't jive, and that's why it does have a bearing on what they're doing. But they've got to do better with that stuff, which is the case on a ton of stuff. Zen Sports is the primary sponsor of this podcast and has been for some time. You can get a no danger first wager at Zen Sports. Zen Sports, go download the app to become a member using the code TNPAUL, TNPAUL. You go there and you make a bet of at least $10. You get a free year's of membership to paulkuharsky.com. You make a bet up to $1,000, and this bet is insured. You either win the bet or you lose that first bet and you are refunded your money. This is quite a deal because you either can bankroll yourself for some time and have a nice amount of money there to continue to make bets with, or you've got the reassurance that if by chance, the rare chance that you make the wrong bet there, your money's coming right back to you. This is great. I've got a game I love this weekend. Look, Washington is not as good as it has played. And I like what they're doing, and they've done well against a weak schedule. Their only quote-unquote good wins are against Cincinnati, who was playing terribly at the time, and Arizona, and I don't think Arizona's particularly good. Now, you could say the same about the Bears, but the Bears have won 3 straight against the Rams, the Panthers, and the Jags. Also not great teams, but they've got a rhythm going now with Caleb Williams and their defense and things going. And the wild card here is that Jaden Daniels is out for Washington and Marcus Mariota is in. Now, Marcus played well last week in relief against the terrible Panthers, but the Bears are going to have time to game plan now for Marcus Mariota all week. Marcus Mariota, I'm not a big fan of the intensity level. I think if he were what people like to think he is, a lot of former Titans fans, he would be starting somewhere in the league, and he is not. I like the Bears giving 2.5 at Washington this week. That's the bet I will go and make at Zen Sports. Go check them out. No danger first wager. Use the code TNPaul. Sign up. Bet at least $10. Get a free membership to paulkuharsky.com. No reason not to do this. Gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or over in Tennessee to bet. Support Zen Sports. They're a big supporter of mine, and I hope you will help us be the same for them. I'm going to retweet here so we can get this thing going. Continue to go, shall I say. So that was Holtz on stacked boxes. Let's get one more from Holtz on pressing to get the ball to Calvin Ridley. I'm more and more convinced the problem is Calvin Ridley related first and foremost. No, not enough balls have been accurate enough to Calvin Ridley often enough, particularly from Will Levis, and that's a problem. They are not in sync as they need to be. That's a problem. The play calls may have a bearing on this, and that's a problem. But the constant in all of this is Calvin Ridley, who's talking about getting back to work and making things work. Why is it taking at least six games before they're on the same page and everything is worked out? Holtz did say that the one ball where Ridley turned inside or outside and the ball went outside or inside, I can't remember which was on Mason Rudolph. It's 2 weeks in a row where he's given us a tip like that Calvin Ridley miss was on the quarterback. Nevertheless, Calvin Ridley is not getting it done. Holtz thinks they're pressing to get the ball to Ridley.
Yeah. We were on our way to having a decent one when he had the one drop, and I think I think we're all pressing. I think he's pressing. I think we were pressing to get him the ball, against Indy, where we kind of some of those targets that he did get, maybe they shouldn't have gone to him. He could have moved on. And I think we're all just kind of feels like for the first time we've all taken a deep breath and just let's let the ball go where it goes. He'll get open. If he's open, we'll throw it to him. If not, and then he got open on that bench right on their sideline, and he just didn't come down with it. And so it just feels everybody's trying to force it too much, right? So let's just take a step back and kind of let it all happen naturally.
Last week, he said there are guaranteed ways to get the ball to Calvin Ridley, and we should use them. So, which is it? Is it pressing to try to get the ball to him, and they should relax and not press and let it happen naturally, or should they use the guaranteed ways to get the ball to Calvin Ridley? I think they should use the guaranteed ways to get the ball to Calvin Ridley. I think they need the ball in the hands of somebody that can run with the ball in his hand. Where are crossing routes to Calvin Ridley? There may not be his best thing, but I don't particularly care. Like, Arthur Smith was able to get the ball to A.J. Brown on crossing routes where if he could do something with the first guy, he had space to run and accelerate. Now, I'm not suggesting Calvin Ridley and A.J. Brown are similar receivers. A.J. Brown, a much bigger, more rugged receiver. Calvin Ridley, a much more slight receiver who probably clocks faster, though A.J. Brown runs a lot faster than a lot of people think. I just haven't seen them try that. Am I missing that? Try more new stuff. Go lean on the basics. There, you have to compute a way to get the ball in Calvin Ridley's hands. He's got to catch it. The throws have to be accurate, and you got to give him a chance to either catch it deep or run with it. If you haven't read Mike Herndon's piece this week, go back. Subscribers only. This is why you need to be a subscriber. He breaks down all the scenarios with Calvin Ridley and what's going wrong with him and shows that he's not only failing to catch deep stuff, which obviously has a much lower catch rate. He's failing to catch stuff, that's not necessarily deep shots either. There's a real problem for this team. And this looks like a terrible signing right now. And, I think that's fair to go to Derek Williams' question here. How much leeway will Amy give to Rand going into next season? In a couple of years, we can't have another year like this moving into the new stadium. I think too much is made about the new stadium. You don't have to be good moving into the new stadium. It's nice. It was great that the Titans won the AFC Championship and went to the Super Bowl the year they moved into what was Adelphia Coliseum. But they're selling tickets to that stadium now. And it's going pretty damn well from everything that I hear. So people want to be at the new stadium. They want to be where the action is. There'll be good NFL teams coming to play the Titans in that stadium. It's a long way off from now still. It's a long way to plan. Got to plan for 2 seasons before that. I don't think Rand's at risk, but I can see a case against him based on what he did with this $290 million and the fact that, last year he was part of a let's run it back, we could still be good thing that Vrabel was part of that didn't work. And this year he's leading the charge as the chief personnel decision maker with the idea of we're going to bring in all of these veterans who are going to give us leadership and production and help us contend for the AFC South under a new coach that I helped pick. And none of that's happening. So if you're looking for the chief person to blame in this threesome, I would think he's at the top of it. But I don't know. Stoney Keeley merely just watches the scenery here, listens to me talk about Edley's, and wants some burnt ends. And Stoney Keeley has good taste in food from what I know about him. Look, I played around last night, and I looked at a lot of coaches in NFL history. A lot of coaches. I looked at every coach in the history of the NFL since the merger in 1970 who won 4 games or fewer in his first season. Let me say that again. Every coach since the merger in 1970 who won 4 games or fewer in his first season. I found 28. Of those 28, all right, you figure these guys are all off to shit starts, right? And Brian Callahan is probably going to qualify in this. I know a lot of you are saying, how's he going to get to 4 wins? But I think it's a reasonable mark to set. Probably wins, many of you think he'll win less than 4. I said 4 or fewer. Of those 28, 8 coaches, 29%, went on to post career winning records. And this is a pretty unbelievable list. Dick Vermeil, who's in the Hall of Fame. Jack Pardee, who was of the Houston Oilers, your Tennessee Titans franchise. Tom Coughlin, who's going to be a reasonably hot Hall of Fame candidate this year with Mike Holmgren and Mike Shanahan. Jimmy Johnson, who's in the Hall of Fame. Marv Levy, who's in the Hall of Fame. Bill Parcells, who's in the Hall of Fame. Don Coryell, who's in the Hall of Fame, and Bill Walsh, who's in the Hall of Fame. The collective record of these 8 guys in their first year, 26, 94, and 2. That's a 221 winning percentage. Their collective record over their entire coaching career, 975, 784, and 3. That is a 554 winning percentage. So we'll pause there. This can give you hope. These very good coaches took over, I'm presuming, bad teams and had bad first years. They won 4 games or fewer in their first year. And they became 6 of them Hall of Famers, a 7th, a good chance to get in the Hall of Fame, the 8th, Jack Pardee. The trouble with this list is that it's an old list. The most current coach on this list is Coughlin, whose last year in the league was 2015, 9 years ago. You look at more recent names on this list, and they've had far less success. 2 of them are in the league right now. Raheem Morris with his second job in Atlanta. He was in Tampa Bay, did not do well. Zach Taylor, whose Bengals were terrible. He's Callahan's mentor, and he had a terrible first season. Robert Saleh, who was just fired and is not going to get another head coaching job, and he's up in Green Bay hanging out with Matt LaFleur. Steve Spagnuolo, who's proved to be a much better coordinator than a head coach. Gus Bradley, who's proved to be a much better coordinator than a head coach. Hugh Jackson, a disastrous head coach. Jim Schwartz, friend of this program, not successful as a head coach, though he did take Detroit to a playoff appearance, their first in a billion years. Pat Shurmur, Jay Gruden, Mike Nolan, our friend Dave McGinnis, dating back a little further. So there's hope in that some very successful coaches have started very, very poorly and gone on to great success. But none of them have been coaching in the league in the last decade, really. And the ones who have coached more recently and had their bulk of their coaching career more recently have been more disasters. So maybe the time where you can have a terrible first year and turn out to be a very good head coach is over. That's something to ponder. I may post that list for you to be able to examine it better with when I put this podcast up at paulkuharsky.com. Another 2 things. We talked about the potential for trading Simmons and for trading Landry. If you deal Simmons, it will cost his new team $916K a game in base salary, plus a $500,000 per game roster bonus. So it costs a new team $1.4 million a game, a week. So right now, if it got traded this week, that would be $15.6 million for the new team for 2024, plus $6 million, which isn't much, guaranteed in 2025. The Titans cap for Simmons would go up $4 million this year with accelerated leftover stuff to $25.6 million. Titans have $18 million of cap space, according to Over the Cap. So you wouldn't love to take on that extra 4, but you could. I don't think the contract here is prohibitive for either side. Harold Landry would cost a new team just under $1 million a week, $958K a week in base salary. Right now, if he was traded this week, that would cost the new team $10.5 million in total. And the Titans cap would go up a little over $2.5 million this year to $26.4 million. another deal. It seems manageable on both sides. Again, they have nobody to take Jeffrey Simmons snaps and be even remotely effective with them, as much as Jeffrey Simmons has not been lighting it up. They have nobody that could take Harold Landry's snaps and be remotely as effective with them, even though Harold Landry has not been particularly effective with them right now. So, I'm of the opinion they should deal everything they could deal for as much as they could get for it. I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's the route that I would take. Chad Brinker told me when I talked to him for the analytics piece that's still up at paulkuharsky.com, which is another reason you should subscribe. A lot of good information there. He said that they'd like to have 8 to 10 draft picks a year. And the way to get that is to make deals like what we're talking about. So, I just think they took the shot with the free agent class, and now they need to get going. G says that Spags is a tremendous defensive coordinator. The Chiefs lucked into Andrew Reid, and Spags just ridiculous. Well, the Chiefs hired a good defensive coordinator when he was available. How did they luck into Andy Reid? The Eagles fired Andy Reid, and the Chiefs were the team that was smart enough to hire them. Here's Ben for Vols. I was hoping because I couldn't find the tweet, but it is what inspired me to look at those coaches with 4 wins or less. Ben, if you are not a member of paulkuharsky.com, I think you owe me a subscription just for answering that question, which I spent over an hour researching last night. Ryan was happy to see it was me who broke the news regarding Levis being inactive and Mason Rudolph starting that game last week. I appreciate it. Jesse says, Paul, the team was trash last year, and you sound like you want a miracle from both the head coach and the general manager. Team needs a few years to get all the trash out and get his guys in. That's why Washington is good this year and was bad last year. That's why Houston was good last year and was bad the year before, because nobody in the NFL makes a fast turnaround, right, Jesse? No. Teams do make quick turnarounds. A. B. This team should at least be in the 6-7 win range. At least as good as last year's horseshit team was. At least as good. Probably slightly better. This roster is substantially better than last year's roster. So where's the improvement? You just give the GM and the head coach a pass because there's a lot of change? Oh, okay. I would say. And I did say this. I said I thought it would take time to gel. I had a conversation with Chad Brinker at the owners' meetings in Florida, and he said he thought the one big question with all of the new pieces and the new coaching staff and all of that is how long would it take to gel. He was hopeful it would be fast, but it might not be fast because there was so much. All right, now we're 7 weeks in. How's the gelling going? No different. No different. Now, if you want to be an optimist, you say, well, things should gel more as the season goes on, and the team that we see in November and December should be better than the team we saw in September and October. And that may be the case. That's why I still leave open the possibility that they could win 5 or 6 games. I do leave open that possibility. But they're not trading DeAndre Hopkins and Ernest Jones because they think they're going to be really good the remainder of the year. That's them, not me. That's them, not me. Every team I just mentioned had a huge upgrade in quarterback. That's true. That is true. But you are allowed to get better without having a great quarterback. You're allowed. There are teams who are doing this without, who are more competitive than the Titans without great quarterbacks. Is Sam Darnold a great quarterback? Minnesota's tied for the lead in its division, and they've lost 1 game with Sam Darnold. Is Sam Darnold a great quarterback? Is Baker Mayfield a great quarterback? He's very up and down quarterback. And Tampa Bay is doing pretty well. You know, I'm not saying the Titans are sitting pretty at quarterback by any means. I'm trying to get some standings in front of me here because it helps me see teams more clearly. Let me get to the AFC here. The Steelers, we think, have great quarterbacks in Fields. They won 4 games with Justin Fields, who was kicked out of Chicago because he was so bad. They gave up on him in a super hurry. Is that a great quarterback situation? Colts are 4-3, and at least half of those wins have come from Joe Flacco. Is Joe Flacco a great quarterback? How come they can win with Joe Flacco? How come I mean, there are teams that find ways. Do you not think that Mike Vrabel would be finding more than one win without with the roster as it is? Ron Topinka, I am really thrilled to see you in here. Everybody but the Titans, he said, made an improvement. I mean, I don't think Carolina's made an improvement. So I don't know if that's quite accurate, but I get your broader point. Good to see you, Ron. The line was not updated at all. One guy from the draft for the offensive line. Is that true in terms of newcomers on the line? William Young, Paul, would you want to be 1-16 or 4-13 with the first pick or the 7th pick? I believe in the team not focusing on the draft pick it's going to get while it tries to improve. So I would never, if I'm a fan of a team, I'd like to sit down on Sunday and watch it play some competitive football at times. And I would never sit down and say, oh, I hope they don't win another game because I'm obsessed with the draft. And I've seen a lot of bad picks at number 1. There's no clear consensus number 1 draft pick in this draft. Now, next year there might be, but I just don't buy the thing. You wait all year for the 17 games, and now you want the 17 games to be over, and you want it to be about April. I think I wait all year for. I know the MLB draft isn't the same, but there's no circumstances under which waiting for the Yankees to play all year, I would sit down and not want the Yankees to be competitive, or any team that I follow. It just does not make sense to me. Hello, ladies. How are we doing? All these people are having a huge time at Edley's. Thumbs up to them. We upgraded coaches on back-to-back hires with Malarkey and Vrabel, says G. Was a risk trying to do it 3 times in a row. How many teams upgrade coaches 3 consecutive hires? Could be an interesting piece. Look, you don't not fire a coach if you want to fire him because you think, well, the odds are against me hiring a better coach. It's like the Titans have failed to draft good quarterbacks, but you don't not try to draft a good quarterback because you've not drafted a good quarterback. So if your rationale to keep Vrabel is the odds say that we won't hire a good coach, that's a silly strategy. I mean, they should have kept Vrabel because Vrabel was a pretty good coach in terms of getting the most out of less, and they were asking him to do that too long, and the roster the last 2 years was really bad. But this idea that that everybody getting along was more important than that. It seemed to me like I think the boss could have just said, look, Mike, we need you to do a better job of getting along with people here. And your job's on the line. If you can't do that, would have seemed more reasonable to me than doing what they did. Robert believes that the Titans will slip up and upset someone. The Lions might be that team. Someone will sleep on them. I think you could sleep on the Titans, quite frankly, if you're as good as the Lions and still beat them. But I do think the Titans will upset someone that they shouldn't upset. I don't think it's going to be Detroit. How would this season look if Vrabel would have stayed at head coach? I don't know. I mean, I don't think they would have signed Calvin Ridley. I think they would have spent that money differently and probably not spent as much. But I think they'd have a better record. I agree with this from G. He thinks if they get a top 3 pick, they trade it just like they did for Goff in the Goff-Wentz trade. That I feel the same way. You need somebody to love those quarterbacks. And so we'll see. CA1 says Vrabes would have won the Bears, Jets, and Colts game. The biggest issue was the attachment to Ackerman and Bowen while refusing to let a grown man come in from outside to run the offense. His staff certainly was a concern, and I did think he probably would have won at least 2 out of those 3 games. The roster is better than last year's. No doubt, Robert says. We just have a young coach who's way over his head at the moment. I don't think it's chiefly that. This, Jesse, I mean, we don't need to relitigate this. You say Vrabel didn't like me. He was mean to me. It was funny. I was cool as ice. He was humorously mean to me at press conferences. The extent of my relationship with Mike Vrabel then and now is not what you see publicly. So you can think that Vrabel hates me, and if that makes you feel good, go ahead. I got a great relationship with Mike Vrabel. You could be right here. Derek Williams will leave on this. He fears Rand will be all in on the Shedeur Sanders pick. He'll look past many flaws, especially his all-about-me personality. That's completely conceivable. Hopefully there are safeguards in that building that won't allow him to do that. I'm scared of him personally. But look, the Titans haven't always taken the right risks at quarterback. Maybe Shedeur Sanders turns out to be fantastic. I wouldn't want to deal with his dad. I mean, that's like a high school situation. And the Titans already are a lot like a high school team. They don't need to be more like a high school team. They need to be less like a high school team. My thanks to JT Runke for helping me out here. Zen Sports, go download the app and use TN Paul. Edley's and Leon for taking such good care of me here at 5 Points in East Nashville. Go check out one of their locations. If you have not been, trust me, it is the best brisket and barbecue you are going to find all around town. 8 locations. Find one and go eat there soon. Join paulkuharsky.com. You're missing out. If you're a true Titans fan, you're not getting the full depth of coverage if you aren't reading what we are providing at paulkuharsky.com. I'll have a podcast live from the press box of Ford Field not too long after the game is over Sunday, where you can come and vent or celebrate or whatever the moment calls for, and I'll see you there. In the meantime, I would ask you not to block the box, but be sure to lock your locks. Cheers, everybody, and thanks.